In this video here, we will be critically analyzing your work.
Arts Workfly.
This is your favorite art teacher, Artwork Fly, and if you haven't watched part 1, go ahead and watch part 1 first, then come back to this video. This is part 2. Artwork Fly. How do I critically analyze my work?
You're going to describe, analyze, interpret, judge. So, it's your time now to do an impeccable job with your work. So, points to note when analyzing your work. Pay attention. You must share your story. Yes? Bring out the theme of your work. State your challenges. Highlight your success. Compare the piece with other works, maybe what you have done, as well as to the artist. Okay? Now, I have a piece of work here, and I can tell you, this piece of work here was done by a student, Robert Jackson, and it is entitled Catching Shrimp. We just want to look at the work done by Robert a little bit. Just absorb it a little bit. All right? See what is in the artwork. Why you think you're looking at that? Why you think you're seeing that? Describing the piece of artwork. I'm gonna start with the title. Of course, the title, you don't have to introduce yourself. You don't have to say, I am Robert. No, it's your journal. So that information will already be there. But what examiner want to know is the title and so on as we go along. So the title of the painting is Catching Shrimp, right? The medium that was used is acrylic on canvas. The artwork is the first in a series. So Robert says that the artwork is the first in a series based on his theme, cultural identity. And this is where you probably want to define what is cultural identity or your theme. So here it says cultural identity is a feeling of belonging to a group of people, whether through birth, belief, practices, or tradition. So hence, why I wanted the image and sense and the scene to look realistic so local people can relate to it. Isn't that great? So he wants local people to relate to the work as he's doing something about his cultural identity, right? So the painting is showing 3 boys, so he's describing the objects in the work now. 3 boys on a rock, sitting down there with a large tree hanging over. Okay? So, the elements of color, form, texture were evident. So these are the elements that pop out of the artwork first. And the principles here, he said that popped out was balance, proportion, and emphasis. So here he just described his artwork. You go, Robert. So he's now going into analysis. So, in analysis, the different tones of green allows you to see the texture of the leaves on the tree, true, and the grassy area in the background. Woo! Yes, we can see it, nice contrast there. Right? He said, I try to differentiate the texture of the trees, rocks, skin, figures, even though the colors were very similar in tone. Well, the tree, the rocks, they're all sort of brown. So, they're tones of each other. I understand what he's saying there. So, evidence of light was important to me to show tonal color as well as the time of day. So this looked like what? Mid-morning, not quite afternoon yet. Feel nice, still nice and cool and warm in the morning, right? Yeah, can it be cool and warm at the same time? Maybe. I meant for emphasis to be especially on the 3 figures, especially the one in the red shorts, he said. But however, so he's stating his challenges. However, this tree is dominant because of its proportion. So we can see that, okay, all right, we really see the tree, but and we sort of see the figure below the tree. So the composition is asymmetrically balanced, with the large tree is telling us how it is balanced now, with the large tree in the foreground and the smaller elements such as the rocks. Because things are not equal on each side, it's asymmetrical where you have like a larger thing here, balancing out smaller things. And there are other variances to asymmetrical balance too. But just saying. So that was the analysis. Great job, Robert. Now the interpretation of his piece. So he says, I remember as a child living in the rural area with my grandmother and other siblings. She had forbidden us from going to the river. I said something happening here. This never stopped us from going to the river once she turned our back. Now, we often come home to a fine beating when she discovered that we did. You could have seen that coming. My siblings and I would gather around these holes by the river to hunt shrimp. This was a fun activity for me, regardless of the consequences. You know, many of you boys out there, or children in general, would do these things that you consider fun, regardless of the consequences. Well, I guess we're there at one point or the other. The figures are close in distance to show camaraderie. The poses and the use of the colors might reflect idleness, but it was fun. So you seeing these three young men here just sitting down around just being idle, but really they're having fun. They're catching shrimp, right? And they know they're going home to a beating, so guess what? Might as well them have as much fun as they can as possible. Help the beating wear off. And we are now into judgment of the artwork. Now, he's going to tell you about his successes here or what's not so successful in the work and give reasons for that. So, I believe I was successful to some degree with realism. Really? The river and the rocks for me is the most believable. Which is true. You're looking at the piece of artwork, you see the tree, and you see the river and the rocks. There you see the young men in that order. So yes, tree look like tree. The water actually looks like water, right? And its environment. I'm not entirely sure the work captured the mood I wanted to portray. So he's letting you in now, saying that, you know, this is not maybe what I wanted to portray. So more details could have happened on the figure, such as elements. So he's saying here that if he had put more details using lines on the figure, so you'd be able to see more details on the person's face and their clothes, he would be a little bit more successful here. Overall, I know that this was a successful work sharing his theme on cultural identity. I think so too. So kudos to you, Robert. Okay. Test time. Yes, you think I was going to let you get away without asking you a couple questions? Come on, put on your thinking cap. Come with me. Answer these questions. Did the student share his story? Remember, he spoke about living in the country with his siblings, going to the river. Yes, he did. Did he bring out his theme? His theme was what again? Cultural identity. Yes. These are some of the practices of the children in the rural area. Yes. State his challenges. Oh, definitely. He was struggling to make that emphasis on the figures and it ended up on the tree. So yes, he did. Right? Highlight his successes. He was able to bring across his theme. Right? Now, did he compare his piece to other works, including the artisty research? No, not yet. So this is where we're going to help Robert now to put together his theme and compare it with the artist's theme and work. Alrighty?
Please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can always know when I upload